Hour. Tonight, we will be talking with James Haft about community building and funding in the crypto industry. My name is Jose Enrique Gonzalez, and we're aiming to have a somewhat flexible, informal conversation. Excuse me. So, before we get started, I wanted to ask you guys for a quick round of applause for James, please. Thank you, James, for accepting our invitation. And we'll jump right ahead. James, can you tell us a bit about who you are and how you got into crypto?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So just before we start, it's really much more interesting if you guys ask questions and if we get you guys engaged in the conversation. So I'll do like a couple minutes. We'll talk about my background and about DLTX, my company, and what I think is happening in the market. And then I'd really like if you guys had some questions and we could center the conversation around what's interesting to you as opposed to what's interesting to me, because I talk to myself all day and it's not that interesting. My name's James Haft. I'm the chairman of DLTX. We're a publicly listed company in Norway. We're the first company that's been formed and publicly traded to take advantage of Web3. So the ability to be anonymous and to interact, with identity, value, and information simultaneously using encrypted platforms where you can participate, in a frictionless platform anonymously and really express yourself, whether it's about art, whether it's about money, or whether it's about your opinion. And so we specifically right now mine Bitcoin and Filecoin. We're looking at some other platforms very in the near future. The idea that we have, which I think is interesting for you guys to think about, is that we decided that the protocols are better business partners than people or corporations. So most people, when they come to us, they tell us, oh, we have to give you a big discount. There's a big risk here because you want to do blockchain, because you want to deal with protocols, right? And our response to that is actually an arbitrage in our favor, because they're discounting a factor that we think in the long run is actually going to flip over, and you're going to find out that there should be a premium for doing business with protocols. Because our business partners are algorithmically driven, and they're transparent, and they don't have conflicts of interest with us. And when we put together a transaction or a business understanding through a contract or a smart contract with a protocol, we know exactly how the protocol is going to behave. We know exactly what the return is going to be for our investment. We know the timing, and we know what the risks are without any variability. So we think it's actually an advantage that to look forward as you start to understand what these protocols do, that's what DeFi is. DeFi is dealing with protocols in an algorithmic fashion, trying to extract an arbitrage, right? And so what we're doing is in the real world, an arbitrage where we're bouncing ourselves against the protocols. So that's our business model. That's our big idea. Why do we do it? Why do we think it's important? Well, if you read the newspaper or you watch TV or you go to Thanksgiving dinner next week, everybody disagrees on everything. Nobody agrees on what the truth is. We can't tell the difference between truth and opinion anymore. I love there's a phrase in the room bouncing around somewhere, that my opinion is more important than your truth, right? Or than your fact, right? And that's kind of that's like news on TV at this point. And so we look at blockchain and we look at Bitcoin and we look at these as actually a source of truth. If you look at a blockchain, the information is stored in zeros and ones. And each point of it is either a 0 or a 1. So you can start a conversation at a point where there's no disagreement because it's a 0 or a 1, and that can form the anchor of a business relationship, of what your identity is for a transaction, of what value you're holding that you want to transact, what information you hold, what happened in the past as it was recorded. We now have a way actually to look into the system and have truth. So we believe that this is something which is going to be prevalent, and that this decentralization of truth and control is going to continue to wipe through all the different verticals in the world. So one of the examples that we have is Filecoin. Filecoin is decentralized data storage. So, first you had storage on your computer, then you had a disk, then you had a data room, then you had the cloud, right? But when you think about it, in the last election cycle, the right-wing voices, Parler, etc., they were silenced one day by one employee at Amazon Web Services who turned off their cloud drives. And all of a sudden, those businesses were out of business. So if you think about it, if you're JP Morgan or you're El Salvador or you're Ireland, and you're keeping all your information on AWS or on Google or on Microsoft Azure, you are now on notice that the US government can tell those services to shut you down, and you're out of business because your business is completely digital and you have no access to your information. So we think one day you're going to open the newspaper and you're going to see some event where someone was cut off from their data, and you're going to see a gold rush of companies rushing out of centralized service platforms to platforms that are controlled where, just like it's, if it's not your keys, it's not your crypto. In the long run, it's going to be, if it's not your keys, it's not your data, right? And so we think that Filecoin is just an example of decentralized, storage. It's just one industry that's going to be disrupted by decentralization and by cryptography, and that's really the importance. That's the wave that we're trying to ride. So, sure.
So you talked to us about what you do, why it's important, and you also said, you mentioned some projects you work with. Can you tell us, because I heard you talking the other day, and to me it felt like you guys are a type of trailblazer, and you're also helping shape the industry, because I do know that there are some projects on the island that have a relationship with DLTX. So I want to ask you, how do you feel DLTX helps shape the industry? Because I know you guys do it for your business, but how do you think that trickles over to the rest of us?
So we're kind of an enigma, right? We're a public company that files, quarterly, and has an annual report, and is completely regulated in Norway, and we're comfortable with that, and we follow our responsibility. But on the other hand, we're decentralists, and we think that businesses should run, as decentralized autonomous organizations where they're controlled by the stakeholders, or the people who are participating in the platform. So we're hoping to be the tip of the spear to move the evolution away from a legalistic, court-driven and conflict-driven system into a consensus-driven system where people volunteer into the systems, knowing what the rules are algorithmically, and performing their actions and staying within or without the system voluntarily, without being taxed, without being pursued legally. So we're really trying to find ways to use smart contracts to form the relationships between us and our counterparties. And that's why protocols are such excellent counterparties, because protocols are built on smart contracts. And so we can speak in their native language when we are the interface between the capital markets and the smart contract-driven protocol world.
Can I ask you some of the challenges you have faced as a company when dealing with these protocols? Because I know you mentioned that that's a focus of yours.
So the interesting thing is that, that educating our investors, educating the investors in our projects, educating the banks, educating the regulators is really our job. We can't go forward unless we change the understanding of where, what the norm is in the markets. So, so we've learned not to, we don't seek conflict. We try and explain why what we're doing fits within the paradigms that exist out there, but also in ways that they're actually better, right? Everyone wants to talk about how we need to be regulated more and how we need more critique because we're more dangerous, we're revolutionary, we're changing everything. But at the end of the day, I actually think that human needs don't change in any of these circumstances, and we're serving the same needs that are served by the regulated environment. So we need to do a better job of educating people as to why this environment that we're creating is more attractive in the long run than the historical treatments.
Thank you. So I don't know if you want to hop on over to talk about Crypto Mondays, but for now, DLTX has been an interesting topic.
So I'll talk for a minute about community. So community is about giving, right? It's really interesting. People enter into conversations and negotiations and into opportunities with what they want. But what you want is probably the least important thing in a negotiation or in building a community, right? What matters is what the other guy wants, right? What matters is what are they willing to give? What do they want in return? And understanding where they sit is the key to being successful. And to me, being successful is, especially community building, is the ability to leave and still have the community have its own energy. Because as long as it needs the founder's energy, it's not a community, it's a cult, right? And so I don't want to get into different, other things that happen out here. But when you're dependent on an individual, you're a cult, right? When you're a community, it's the energy of the people together. When they get in a room, that creates an electricity where that number of people is worth more than they were previously. There's more ideas, there's more opportunity, there's more support, and there's more reasons to show up on a daily basis and to have growth. So to me, add that together with the thought that no one's ever gotten wealthy off of charity, right? Charity doesn't make you wealthy. It gets you to the next day where you're in the same position you were the previous day. So the communities that we're building around crypto in Puerto Rico and globally have to be based on teaching people how to fish, not on giving them a fish, right? Showing them where the differences are, showing them how you can make a difference in their life, showing them things that they can teach other people, that they'd be excited to show other people, and then create evangelists out of the people that are in the room. This is a perfect example right here in this room, right? And then in the back, Keiko, for the Puerto Rican Blockchain Trade Association, she created Crypto Curious. So that's an adjunct to Crypto Mondays. We decided to bring in the local crowd and teach in Spanish, an introductory course so people feel comfortable, so that when they graduate, they'll feel comfortable in the room in Crypto Monday. Or even more importantly, go create your own community in Ponce, right? In Rincon, and go and find your friends and go and talk and create your own communities, and we'll tie them all together into a bigger community. And once we have that bigger community, we have power. We'll go out, we'll get the protocols, and we'll build a wallet that we'll give away, and we'll do airdrops into the wallet, and we'll form a community that's Puerto Rico, where people can actually earn a living and share their ideas and control their identity through a wallet that's cryptographically protected, and start to give people an on-ramp into what I call the new decentralized digital economy.
So I think, let me organize my thoughts for a second. You did a good job with Crypto Mondays. I remember coming to the Crypto Mondays almost religiously for my third year of college. And I really met a lot of people. It helped me grow this community, right? That thankfully is not a cult, even though I am the one that brings the speaker. You've heard rumors? Yeah, it could be. We're not always perfect. But I know that you and Keiko, by the way, shout out to Keiko. She's an awesome person that has helped the community a lot. Yeah, she deserves that round of applause. With that being said, I know that community building isn't easy, man. I've had my struggles. In fact, this community took me about 4 years to make, right? We went through the bear market, and the bear market was tough. But I want to ask you about what challenges you have faced growing this community that you're investing in here in Puerto Rico.
So, it's interesting. I don't really think that there have been problems, right? I kind of don't have expectations. There's no grand plan, and there's no place where we get to and we're there, right? This is about evolution, and forming communities and forming, the synapses of a new network. And we're all nodes in a network, and every one of these meetings is another node in a bigger network, right? And so sometimes the meetings are big, and sometimes the meetings are small, and sometimes they're interesting, and sometimes they're not interesting, right? And I've learned that it doesn't really matter, right? What matters is that people come back, right? And that people take the seed with them and bring it to other places. So, the only places where I see problems is, again, when people try and adopt these formats for their own personal benefit, right? I think this has to be community, by the community, for the community, and that we need to be replaceable, and that to be successful, by definition, any one of us need to step up here and talk about what's important to them today, and an idea that they had, and a person that they met, and a place that they want to go, or an event they want to attend. So I think it's really important that you take on the responsibility of not being passive, which is why I want to get to questions right after this set right here. I really want to hear what you guys are thinking, what's important to you, and it doesn't have to be a question. It could be a statement, or it could be a thing that you're thinking about, right? But we got to learn to share. We got to learn to get out of our own heads and stop talking to ourselves, and share the ideas with everyone around us. I love to hug. I'm a hugger, and just get the information flowing, and you'll find that there's people around you who think just like you do. We have so much more in common than we do that differentiates us. And we just need to learn how to accept the people around us and accept the positives and negatives, but understand what we're all trying to achieve here, which is, self-sovereignty of information, self-sovereignty of our wealth, and self-sovereignty of our identity.
With that being said, I want to open it up for questions. I see a hand in the back, but before we go on to that question, I want to make a comment about leadership and this idea of decentralized organizations, right? And how I agree that they are the ideal way to work. Sometimes, regardless of whether it's a decentralized or a centralized organization, you need structure. If you don't have structure, what are we even talking about? What are we even talking about?
Well, I don't know. I hear what you're saying. First of all, you have to understand that all decentralized organizations start from a centralized seed, whether you like it or not. They tend to come from one person's mind. And then that one person talks to another person. And then if it's good, it grows like a virus and starts to have the ability to become decentralized because there's enough nodes. You can't have a decentralized network with one node, right? And so 2 nodes, 3 nodes, not so much. 10, 20, 100, 1,000, then you start talking about decentralization. So you can't be in love with the concept of decentralization, as a pure thought, because the reality is, I believe, that almost all our ideas start from a centralized seed. So and then organization, I don't know, I'm gonna get shot for this. I think organization's overrated. I think that things follow a natural energy, and then sometimes you have to let things grow along their own path. And sometimes it's kind of ugly looking at how the sausage is made. And if you know how the sausage is made, you might not eat it. But at the end, you get to that point where you want to be, and then you know it, and then it clicks in. And I think the route to get there isn't a single route. I think it happens in a lot of different ways. And you have to have faith. You have to have faith in yourself, faith in each other, and faith in the cosmos. And let stuff happen. Sometimes stuff happens and you don't like it and you leave, right? And other times you like it and you stay and you give more to it. And I think that's what it's about.
Your words give me hope. With that being said, we have questions in the back. I think Keiko was there. Keiko, do you want to come up over here so people can see you?
Oh, not Keiko.
Thanks for coming. You can sit there, everyone.
All right. So my question is, I thought yours was a really good question, and I thought James did a very good job at dodging your question. So I'm going to rephrase it and ask again about community building. 4 years is a long time, so kudos to you. But do you knock on doors? How do you get the word out? How do you get people to come? How do you get them to come back if coming back is the most important part? And in organization-wise, I'm again with Enrique with organization is important because everyone knows it's this place every Thursday, right? So if there was an organization and structure, how would we do that? So to that point, can you talk a little bit more about how Crypto Mondays, did you just show up at a bar one night and convince the entire room to listen to you and create Crypto Mondays? Or how else did it become a success? And I think that was one of the strengths.
So the answer that Keiko doesn't want is actually, we did just show up at a bar and it did just happen. But actually, so I'll give a brief history of Crypto Mondays. My partner was a gentleman named Lou Kerner, who I have tremendous respect for. Who's a well-known, well-read author who talks about crypto, who's been talking about the next new thing in technology since Facebook, where he made the first big call as a professional analyst on Facebook. And we decided in 2017 to form Crypto Mondays together because Bagatelle in New York told us that they had Mondays free and they wanted us to pay $10,000 for Monday night. And we told them, what are you, crazy? You're gonna pay us. And they said, how much? And so we said 10% of the bar tab. So they said yes, and we had 2 weeks. So we went to meetup.com. We put up Crypto Mondays, which was the name we figured out, thought about over a beer. And we showed up at 7 o'clock on Monday night at Bagatelle in Soho in New York. And Lou and I sat there at 7 o'clock with a bar with all kinds of food on it, with all the alcohol out. The place was beautiful. There were lights. It's huge, a huge spot. It's a really fancy, European flair kind of place. And we were the only people there, literally. And so Lou and I are looking at each other for half an hour going, this is interesting. We could have had a drink in our living room. We didn't have to come here, right? And so after half an hour, one guy in a hoodie with a laptop, walked in and went to the back far corner, opened his computer, and started hacking or something. I don't know what he was doing. It was like stealing Wi-Fi or something. But he was sitting there, and that was another 15 minutes of looking at that guy going, all right, we definitely a lesson in humility. But then came 8 o'clock, and all of a sudden, a couple people walked in, more people, and by 9 o'clock, 9:30, we had 250 people that had read about the fact that there was a crypto meetup at Bagatelle that literally just showed up, all right? And they were more excited than we were. And they were talking to each other and telling stories and, going back and forth, and the bar literally had to kick them out at closing time because the people didn't want to leave. And Lou and I didn't do anything but create the space and invite people into it with us. And the reason it was successful, whether it's by luck or whether it was by timing or whether it was by charm or whatever the reason was, the people in that room found a chemistry amongst each other that they really liked being there. And the next day we were deluged with emails saying, when's the next Crypto Monday? And we were like, that's easy, Monday, right? So we did it again on Monday, and literally, I'd like to say that there was more to it. The hardest thing we had was managing the meetup.com page. We then got a call from a guy in San Francisco who said he heard about it. It was really important to him. He needed to know what it was like to get a franchise. And we were like, well, go to the website and put a .sf after it, put up your own meetup.com page, and then we got a call from this wonderful woman in Florida named Erica Gemma in Miami, and she put up hers. And then Pedro I met in Malta, and he started his. And people were actually demanding from us like what to do, and it's basically a manual how to do it. And I told them there's only 2 rules to Crypto Mondays. And the first one is you have to have a woman as one of your organizers, and the second is you can't discriminate against anybody. Right? I said, besides that, you could do it in a bar, you can have alcohol or not, you can do it in the library, you can have speakers or not, you can have music or not. It's your event, it's your community's event, but at the end of the day, you have to be open and you have to allow people a safe space to come and talk. That's it.
Can you come over here and share your name and your question? Thank you.
What's going on, Bryce? I'm actually new here, but thanks for coming out to talk to us. And yeah, the story about starting Crypto Mondays is pretty crazy. I enjoyed that. But I was curious about DLTX and just wanted to know a little bit more about like what you've learned from building that company, kind of how you generate revenue. Is it like appreciation of projects you invest in, or a little bit more about that?
So thank you, Bryce. So DLTX has been, my dream that I manifested for the last 10 years. That I wanted to have a public company with access to the public markets that would be able to take vision of a decentralized world and start to employ that and make it real to the Fortune 500 and help with mass adoption and just be a chapter in the book of the changes that are happening in the world. And then about 4 years ago, Tim Fury, who's in the back looking at his iPad, whatever it is over there, introduced me to a gentleman named David Johnston. And David's a legend. David found, he wrote Johnston's Law, which is everything that can be decentralized will be decentralized. And he also wrote the general theory of decentralized applications, which was written before Ethereum existed and was used to teach the founding Ethereum team, why it was important to have dApps. So he invented dApps in 2013 before there was Ethereum, right? And so David's a visionary guy. He's founded his own blockchains, and he has an incredible knowledge of the protocols and the people, and he shares, with me the decentralist burning fire, for what we need to do to change the world, to make it a better place, to hand off a better world to our children, and to me, crypto and the things that are happening, they're your generation's, response to how my generation screwed up the world. Right? Because the more we screwed up the world, the more we told everyone, including the new generations, here's the rules, pay attention or you're going to jail, or we're going to tax you, or we're going to take your wages, right? And so what's happened now is that the younger generation said, okay, that's great, here's a new world, you can't regulate it, okay? Come find me. And to me, that's what's happening right now. That's what crypto's all about. That's this world that what it's all about. So DLTX, the biggest thing I learned for DLTX is the reason that this exists now, and it didn't exist 5, 6, 7 years ago when I was thinking about it as where I want it to be, is I didn't have my team. Okay, I have the most amazing team. We have the most amazing team. Tim is fantastic, and David is fantastic. Dulce, who's local, who we hired as as our chief of staff. Jonathan Mohan, who was the original community manager for Ethereum and for EOS and for Consensus. These are tremendous people in their own right who understand what they're doing. The second thing I learned was, if you want to be fast, you can't be centralized, right? Because there's only so many things we can do. So we've grown as fast as we've had. Our stock is up 4x since we launched in April. And the reason for that is because we've decentralized. We have partners that do our legal structuring. We have partners that do the operations of the actual mining for the assets that we work with. We have partners that find us transactions. We have partners that help us figure out how financial structures, and how to liquidate our token economies. So at the end of the day, second thing I learned was I had to decentralize. I had to eat my own dog food. I had to trust other people. I couldn't think that I could do everything. And I had to understand that everything's not going to happen the way I expect it to. And DLTX is a perfect example, just like Crypto Mondays is a perfect example. In my mind, what we do with DLTX, that's a collaboration between Tim, myself, and David, right? I came back in one day and had a Bitcoin mine, and the deal didn't work, and the guys that were there had a Filecoin opportunity. And so David didn't like it because it wasn't Bitcoin, and Tim wasn't sure. And I looked at it a little bit and said, you know what? The margins look pretty good. I believe in Filecoin. Let's think about it. And we said, nah, and we didn't do it, right? And then a couple weeks later, we realized we were looking for more opportunity. We came back and we looked at Filecoin and we said, you know what? This might have legs. It didn't hurt that Filecoin tripled, during this period of time, so it was much more profitable to be mining it. But the idea was that by relaxing and understanding and working backwards from what we had in front of us, we started to understand that maybe the idea of working with the protocols, not only in mining, but creating a capital markets opportunity where we had an arbitrage, where we could borrow very inexpensive fill, where I know what fill I get back for processing it within the Filecoin protocol, and understanding that I'm getting essentially 2x back when it's costing about 1% a month to own the Filecoin. It's a huge arbitrage. We're now mining Filecoin for about 1/10 of what it costs for the prices in the market. So we have a huge margin to play with. We can pay our investors well, and it shows up very nicely as profit and as income at the DLTX level. So if you would have asked me a year ago, would I be working with protocols as business partners to create financial arbitrage, I would have looked at you and said, how much have you been drinking, right? And now I understand that that's our business model, and I'm looking for more verticals to do the same business in. And I found a algorithmic pursuit that we can. That the bottom line is, the more we do and the harder we execute, the better off we're going to be. And that's a beautiful thing to understand. What you have to do every time you turn the crank. That takes 90% of the risk out of the equation.
Accepting that not everything's gonna come out as you want it to as a leader is a freaking hard pill to swallow. Pero it's necessary. I mean, your success speaks for itself. I think we had a question in the back earlier. All right, actually from him. Can you come over here, please? Can you share your name and your question? Thank you, and then we'll head over to you.
Hi. My name's Jan Richfrell, and James, I would love to hear you extrapolate a bit more on your theory about anonymous information and trust in anonymous information through your network or platform. But then also, interestingly, to the extent that you can articulate it, which might be a lot to ask, is the interplay of anonymous information and smart contracts and trading in your decentralized atmosphere.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you. I'll answer the second first, then you're going to remind me what the first was. So the idea of decentralized trading and decentralized anonymous trading. So it's interesting. People jump immediately to money. Right? All the conversation for Bitcoin, everything is all about money. But this isn't about money. This revolution is not about money. It's about self-sovereignty of data, self-sovereignty of your identity. Your identity is actually the most important thing of all the assets we talk about. Your identity and anonymity are the most important aspects of this new world. Right? Why does the bank need to know who you are for you to do the transaction? Right? It doesn't make any sense. Why do I need to know who you are to do a transaction? If you have what I want, and I have what you want, and we can press a button and trade, why can't we? And why does it matter what country you're in? And why does it matter what religion you are? And why does it matter what sex you are, right? I don't understand, right? And so, the answer is so you can be regulated, so you can be taxed, which, let's call those valid pursuits of the state, of the current state, right? But the reality is that you're trading away a lot, much more in value when you give away your information, your data, than the actual value of most transactions that you do on a daily basis, right? And so, I have a question as to whether or not we don't have an inalienable right to own our own identity, right? Why do you pay taxes in the United States just because your mother was standing in the United States when she gave birth to you, right? It's kind of a strange rule, right? You have no choice in this. You were born. They slap you with a birth certificate. They slap you with a passport, and boom, you can't leave. There must be something wrong with the system if you can't leave, right? Why would they need to use force to make you stay? It doesn't make any sense. Why can't you choose? So I think in the future, and I don't know if it's tomorrow, that we're going to be able to choose, these answers. And Jan, to go to a bigger part of your answer, which I think you're nodding your head that you agree. Yeah, I think it's bigger than money. It's bigger than DeFi. It's bigger than trading. It's everything. Okay, these things are fractals. How you trade your stocks is going to end up being the same as the way you store your wealth. It's going to be the same as the way you store your secrets. It's going to be the same as the way you transact your business. So DeFi, as it's happening now, is the first place people focus because it's money, and we're boring. We chase money. Okay, but it's going to end up becoming much bigger. So when you're looking at right now in DeFi, in metaverses, in play to earn, and all these different platforms, what you're looking at is the birth of a new way for community to form, a new way for people to transact with each other.
Sorry. So, but just going back to this thing here, when you talk about finance, right? There's a financial decision, but usually preceding that is it's based on information. So what kind of is your idealized information environment for people to make these decisions when the strong pattern is that anonymity is one of the big, or is often a problem in that environment?
Okay, so anonymity is not necessarily the problem. No. I hear it. So what's happening is that we are learning how to replace the wisdom of the crowd. Right? The wisdom of the crowd replacing centralized authority and opinion. So we've relied, what happened is, hundreds of years ago, we started to employ centralized concepts and to imbue centralized authorities with rights over us to promulgate laws that we would follow so that we could try and create order out of chaos. Right? We needed a monarch. We needed a currency. We needed a military. Right? We needed borders. We needed all those things. But what happened is that those entities which were formed to support us, by us, and permissioned by us, and by the way, if someone gives you permission to do something, you're vulnerable because those same people can take away the permission because you require the permission to get there. We're forgetting that about the current regulatory systems. So we gave these systems the rights. What happened is the systems became self-aware, right? They started to understand that they had power in and of themselves, and that to maintain that power, they had to keep pushing the rules, and they had to punish you for leaving, because if you left, if you were a heretic, then you could shake the system, and they would lose their power over you, which became more important than the rights or opportunities that you were seeking by giving them power. So it kind of became, I tell the story of 2001 Space Odyssey and the computer HAL, right? The HAL was supposed to protect the astronauts. At some point, HAL realizes, oh my God, they're going to shut me down. And they say, HAL closed the pod bay door so the astronauts can live, which is supposed to be HAL's job. And HAL says, I don't think I can do that, Dave, right? And that's kind of what our government looks right now. We're saying we want peace, right? So the idea now. Well, I don't think it's idealized. I just think it's ugly in seeing how it gets formed. And I think there's going to be violence, but I don't think it's going to come from the crypto guys. I think it's going to come from the government.
Well, what's your vision? That's what I'm asking.
So my vision of it is it's messy, and it's inconsistent, and that you're going to have that historically people don't give up the type of power that we've given to the centralized authorities without violence. Right? Now, what the form of violence, whether it's taking your money, taking your liberty, right, or whatever they could do, but this has happened. But what's happening to us now is very similar to what was happening in the late 60s and the 70s in the United States with Kent State and other places where people started to object to what the government was doing, and the government came back in the beginning, overreacted because they didn't know how else to do it, and then they realized there isn't a government if they're imposing it by force, and they had to relax, and that's when the flower power and the hippies came back. But you got to remember, all those hippies and all those flower power guys, they all went to Wall Street, right? They all became the mainstream. So this is just about the new mainstream. This is about the new norm being formed. And we're just here at one of the most exciting times in history, watching a new norm being formed. You guys out there, you're going to be the new government. You're going to be the new vote. You're going to be the new economic powers, right? It's the younger generation, the millennials, that's going to form what we look like in the future. And this is a way for you to express yourself. And so I think we're looking at it right now. And all the stuff that's happening with the degens, and all the thing that's happening now with the memes and the meme stocks and the dog tokens and the rest of the stuff. You don't have to like it. You don't have to think it's real. You can think it's a hoax. But it is the process of change happening right in front of us. And all those millions of people that bought Shinu, Inu, whatever, right? All those people are going to have MetaMask wallets. And they're going to know the difference between EOS and Tron and Binance and Ethereum. And all of a sudden, when they realize that they're holding on to dog blank, right, in their wallets, they're going to start to say, what else am I going to hold? And they're going to be people that buy Ethereum. They're going to be people buying Polkadot, etc. So I think we're watching the process of change right now as we're here.
Sorry.
Yeah, you can come ahead. We have a couple more minutes left.
One last question.
Yeah, go ahead. And then we have Kurt in the back.
When you imagine your platform with this, smart contracts, anonymity, the right to exchange between people, do you imagine people getting informed in your environment? Do you imagine that the information where they make their decisions will happen in your environment? And if they do, what does that look like to you? That's what I meant by idealized, I'm sorry. And then if it's not inside your environment, where do you see healthy green shoots of a new way to trust and validate information in a decentralized format?
I think that's great questions. So first of all, we endeavor to be transparent and to be open source and to allow people to be critical and to allow people to educate each other. And I think that's the process of open source software. And I don't trust closed source software. I don't believe it. Right? What I want to do is work on platforms where millions of other people smarter than me have been banging at the code and have given me a level of security, because I know that other people who are in the same position as I, not a person who's profiting from me, but a person that's next to me, has an opinion that this is safe. And that the larger that number is, and that the less discord there is in the group, the safer I feel. So I'm looking to the intelligence of the crowd and providing that information that's required for the intelligence of the crowd. So that's the first part. What was your second question? Just yell it out.
Just something along the lines of, what is your idealized environment for creation?
In short, and with throwing around acronyms, it's a DAO. Okay, and it's a flat organization where everybody shares information, where your reputation is scored not by who you are, and not by where you were born, and not what your religion is, and not by what college you went to, but your reputation is scored by how you behaved in the past and how that compared to the norm, right? And so you start to have systems within decentralized autonomous organizations where I will see that Jan has spoken. Okay, and I'll say I can like him or not. I like his avatar or I don't. But that won't matter. I'll look at your score. I'll look at how your score was formed, and that will be open and transparent. Okay, and that will tell me that in the past you've tended to be right in items that had to do with DeFi, but with things that had to do with democracy, it doesn't look like you're exactly in the middle of the road. Right? And so I'll be able to score you by those things and understand who you are, not by your identity. So I don't need to know who you are. I need to know how you behaved. That's much more important. A man is what he does, not what he says. I'm Jewish, by the way. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? In the born again model, your scores.
No, there's no born again. Your history over time, and I have the option to score you for recent behavior over previous behavior, or I can use an algorithm that will automatically do that. I can change algorithms on how I judge you.
Got it. So score.
Reputation.
Sounds like GitHub, or a newer version of GitHub. Anyways, I saw a question in the back. Please come over here, share your name and your.
Tim put a shirt on just for this event.
There you go.
Hey, my name's Timothy, and first of all, everybody heard how exciting it was for you to start up the whole Crypto Monday thing. Keiko's got the awesome PR blockchain thing. It's really important for all of us. It's not like we're keeping this information to ourselves. If we want this thing to survive, we need to inform a lot of the locals, a lot of the Puerto Ricans, that we need to get everybody involved, because when they're benefiting, it's going to remain, they're going to see the benefit. And when they're seeing the benefit, it's going to remain. We're going to be able to continue with this. Otherwise, there's going to be a continued blowback on our group. So talk to people, talk to the locals, talk to everybody, get them involved in it. It's really important. It's a friendly, very casual format, very well described. People pay big bucks for this around the world to have somebody sitting here talking to you, and look where we are. It's amazing. Yeah. So next, I wanted to find out, I don't know if you've had time to look at it yet or not, but the new spending bill, 2,700 pages, hidden within there today, the infrastructure bill, included some wording in there that would impact cryptocurrency, very loose definition of what a brokerage is. Have you had a time to look at that yet, and how do you see that playing out?
All right, before we get to that question, if you can hold on to your answer. On that note, we need to focus on what we agree on. The locals and the Act 20 people that come, we're not going to agree on everything, but there are some core issues that we're going to agree on, specifically relating to cryptocurrency, right? And perhaps even taxes, who knows? But we should focus on those core issues, because there is a lot of people getting involved, and we all want to capitalize on this.
But I'd like to point out that the concept that there has to be friction between locals and the Act 20 folks is I don't understand where that comes from. My philosophy is always and, not or but, right? And so the idea that new people are coming here who are accomplished and successful and understand a new vision for the future, that is a treasure for Puerto Rico, right? And so I think that, you know, when I hear that there's friction between the communities, which I, by the way, haven't seen, right? But my idea would be to hug the other person and to understand what they're talking about, and try to come to a point where you find our commonality instead of our difference. And so I think it's really important for us, you know, to be able to look past any of the differences and try and understand we're all just people, right? We're all just people at the end of the day, and we're all going to follow the rules to some extent. We're all going to try and create our own rules, and so I think that, you know, in the long run, that we have to I'm new to Puerto Rico. I came in August. I'm sorry, in April. And I'm so happy and proud to be here. And I love the people, and I love the island, and I want to give. That's why I helped form Crypto Curious with Keiko. That's why Crypto Monday's here. That's why I'm here right now, right? And the whole idea is that we have things to share. We have vision to talk about, and we have things to do together, right? And that's what I want all these meetings to be about.
I'm 100% agree. I would say that most of the misunderstandings come from ignorance. I read this article that got published in this Center for Investigative Journalism, and you know, who would not believe something written by the Center of Investigative Journalism? And it's, you know, full of opinions that perhaps aren't so accurate. I'm not going to point anything specifically out now, because I don't have the article, but I went over it and I'm like, no wonder people, like, when I talk to them about crypto as a local, they bat another eye, or they're not, you know, so open to it.
So that's about evangelization and about sharing the knowledge, and let people come to their own opinion. Not everyone's going to love you. If everybody loves you, you're doing something wrong, as far as I can tell, right? You got to have an opinion. You got to stand for something. Talking about crypto, and the spending bill, but I haven't read it specifically. one of the things I learned, I was in China for 4 years running Bear Stearns corporate finance. One of the things I learned, the Chinese government in 1990, 1994, they were outlawing everything left and right. You know, they were going to be capitalists, but they were outlawing capitalism. They loved America, but they were outlawing doing deals in the United States. So one of the things we learned was whenever the Chinese government outlawed anything, the first thing you should do is buy it. Because the only reason they're outlawing it is because they're really scared and it matters. Otherwise, they wouldn't be bothering paying attention. So if the US government is focusing on crypto and they're starting to talk about what it means to hold crypto and trade crypto, you should think about that. You should think about what that really means. What's the message you're really being told, right? And that would not make me run from crypto.
Not financial advice, the China part.
I don't know.
All right, guys. Well, it kind of sprinkled a bit, but it seems to be clearing. I don't know if anybody has any last questions, but if that's everything, yes, sir, please. Thank you for coming. Please share your name and your question.
Alejandro Ellis, my question for you would be, whenever building community, you're obviously talking about reaching to locals and whatnot, and crypto obviously has many benefits for commerce, for business, but how do you think would be, at what points do you think would resonate with a person who might not be a business owner or who might not be
I think the most immediate example is going to be money. I think we're going to find ways to give out wallets and to authorize wallets, and then have the major protocols support airdrops, which relate to incentivizing behavior, where people can earn valuable currency for behaving in a way which is put forward by the protocols. So I think that's the first. I think the second thing that's going to come out is identity, and starting to let you form your own identity and use that as a way to participate in platforms.
All right, everyone, thank you for coming. The rain has blessed us, so that's good luck. A last round of applause for James. Thank you for coming, James, once more. And that was the Crypto Happy Hour.